start again. It's a redskin.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Corgi Town, USA. I am Candy. In my lap is Chuckles, our spokescorg.
I am Catherine, and next to me, giving me side eye, is Digby, my corgi.
What'd you do to get side eye?
I don't know. I think I'm talking.
Are you too low on the schmackos?
I'm too low on the schnackles, and I'm talking, and I'm disturbing his nap.
Quiet and Gib with the treats, lady.
I know.
So he's in the studio, member of the Corgi Committee, as is Tito Bandito, the youngest member, and we have Mortimer Barnabas, of course, and Little Booger. Then we have your foster today.
And we have well, she's no longer a foster.
That's
She
right.
started as a foster.
She was originally your foster.
She was originally our foster, and then she was adopted and then brought back. So she became our foster again, and then she was adopted again, and we're just babysitting her until tomorrow.
Yeah.
When her daddy gets home.
So she's hanging out with the Corgi Committee today.
Yes, she is.
Yeah. So if you're new here, hi, welcome. We do episodes every week, all things Corgi and pet parent lifestyle. We're all about the health and well-being of the pups, your life with your pups and kitties and all the other little pets and family too. We want to be a source of information and support for you.
Yep.
So we've talked about everything from pet grief to chronic conditions to Corgi-centric concerns, as well as our creator series, which we're bringing back in a big way in season 6.
So we're in season 6. And if you've been with us since season 1, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Or any season, really. Welcome back. And thank you so much for continuing to support this show.
That's how we're able to do this.
That's right.
Yeah. And we have had a number of rescues on. Our 100th episode, we had Queen's Best Stumpy Dog Rescue out of Southern California. We've had Melissa on with East Coast Corgi Rescue a couple times. We've had Sandy Grambort, who did animal welfare for many years.
Yes.
These are all causes that are very close to our hearts, and we try to support rescue as much as we can. And then Kat's out here fostering now these days.
Yes, I am.
I've rescued several Corgis myself. So we're out here trying to make sure that all these adorable, loving souls get good homes. So we thought we would bring on a new rescue friend. Should we bring her on?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Everyone, please welcome Angela Laudermilk from Howelling Kennels Corgi Rescue. Angela, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, we appreciate your time and coming on, and we know how hard it is to make time and balance for yourself when you're working in rescue. So we definitely appreciate you taking the time. But we would love to hear, if you can, just introduce yourself and tell us how you got started in rescue.
So I got started actually with Corgis. I was a breeder first. In 1995, I got my first Corgi. And after that kind of started everything. Actually, my husband, at the time boyfriend, was the whole reason I got a Corgi. And it was because he had never had a single dog in his life. And his mom only allowed the neighbor's Corgi to come in and come over. So I went on a search for a Corgi for him because I was raising and showing collies at the time. That started everything. And after that point, a few years later, I rescued our first Corgi from a home where they were military and go to Hawaii. And it was a 11-year-old Corgi, and they were afraid that being put in quarantine, he would not make it. And he turned out to live to be 17. And so he was a great first rescue.
Yeah.
And then it snowballed from there. As soon as one person finds out you've rescued an animal, all of a sudden you become the rescue. So
yeah, this is very true. Kat fosters.
And I foster, and so yeah.
You filled some questions like that. I've rescued a few, and now that we've had Corgi Town, I have people reach out to me saying, I want a Corgi. And so the first question we ask is, are you willing to rescue? So I have a network, thankfully, of people in different regions that I can connect to available ones and say, here you go, they're available. Ask the questions. But But yes, you are right. Snowball is a good way to put that. That is very much how that happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
at this point we've done about a little over 500 dogs now. We've run through our rescue. So,
Wow, that's amazing.
That's 500 precious souls you've saved.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, I
amazing.
feel like they are precious to me. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the work you're doing. And let's talk about, so this is Howelling Kennels Corgi Rescue, and that's HOWELLING Kennels Corgi Rescue. Do you want to talk about the name? How you got that?
well, my last name used to be Howell, and actually that was my kennel name for the longest time when I was raising and showing both uh, collies and corgis. So it
Yeah,
kind of stuck, and I just kind of kept it into the rescue as well. So,
that's super cute. I
See,
like
I
that.
thought she just named it after Mr. and Mrs. Howell on Gilligan's Island.
That can apply now
That could apply.
since she's no longer a Howell.
Yes.
The work that you're doing, obviously, we want to save the babies, but I would love to hear in your words with Howling Kennels Corgi Rescue what your why is, what you hope to accomplish with your organization. Obviously, saving precious souls, like we talked about. But I would love to hear in your words what your main mission is.
my main mission is really at this point keeping corgis out of shelters. Because for every corgi in a shelter, if I can keep them out, that allows one more of those another breed to be in the shelter and have space. So if I can help as many corgis, that keeps other gives other dogs space to be in a shelter.
Yeah, awesome. What region are you in?
Well, I'm in Ohio, so but I've taken dogs as far from as Texas,
Oh, wow.
Arizona, Florida, New England area. So we've taken dogs when hurricanes have gone through, and they were at the shelter. So we've taken dogs from all over the United States, basically.
And does your own volunteers, are they the ones that handle the transport?
So no, I usually work out with, well, before COVID, we had Corgi Transport that did, and we have it kind of up and going again to a certain extent. And so what we would do is just basically set out for legs for the dogs to make a journey to here.
Okay, yeah, because Stumpy Brigade, we had them on and they handled transport for rescues. They were
Yep.
the ones that kind of took over for that as well. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
familiar with them, but might be good to be
I think I've
connected.
used them before as well. So
Yep.
for sure, I've used several different groups, whatever I can find sometimes to get a dog here or away or whatever. I do. And then I do legs myself. If I've got time, I do them.
So multiple resources that you utilize
Yeah.
to move the babies
Yeah.
where you need them.
Oh, so I have a question because you said you're in the Ohio region. Do you end up with a lot of the dogs from
The
how much?
mills?
What?
The mills.
The mills. Yeah, they're
Yeah. We
particularly
have
mills out there.
had over the years, that's one of our hardest ones because we have such a high Amish population. It is one of our major, points of getting, now that auctions have kind of stopped, that has slowed down a little bit, but, we've had a lot of mill dogs for sure come through. We've gone together at times and gotten dogs from several auctions and stuff like that. Several of us rescues pulled money together so that we could go and save some from mills.
Did you say auctions?
Yeah, they used to. So this was before COVID, but there were Amish auctions where they would sell dogs, sell other animals as well, but a lot of them would have dogs. And when we find out that there were corgis that were going to be sold amongst them, we would go in and kind of put up money and funds together so that we could get them out of there so that they wouldn't have puppies again and again.
This is new to me because we were very familiar with the Amish mills. Emily from Adopt a Corgi came on and she'd educated us about that. And then of course Melissa deals with that a lot in Northeast. So
right, and I know that there's a huge Amish population in Ohio, and
Yeah,
that's why I
in
asked the
Ohio.
question.
Yeah. And they're not to culturally shame, just for anyone who's new here. It's just a perspective. They don't see animals as sentient beings. They see them as commodities. And so the commodity is a thing. It's not a living thing with emotions, and that creates a lot of problems
Yes.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
wow.
that,
we had
you know,
Amish-
it's not about, you know, and I have met some very fine Amish people
Sure.
who have actually worked to try and get the, you know, populations down, you know, so that they aren't reproducing, and but it is a money commodity to them,
Right.
versus a living, you know, being with feelings.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's culturally, that's how they look at it. We try to let everyone know we're not shaming. It's just that's the way they look at it. That is their perspective. We don't share that perspective. We know that these animals have thoughts and feelings, and that's why there's the problems that we have addressing. And I'm glad that you're getting through to members of that community with that. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah,
I'm
it
glad to
is
hear
hard
that.
because it's not something that they are always willing to talk about or do,
Sure.
or, you know, but we've had quite a bit of a group of people who now also they kind of trust us more. It was kind of like, don't shame and don't try and put anything on them, that they're doing anything really horribly wrong. So that they did trust us enough to come to us and say, hey, we got this litter of puppies, or we've got these dogs that aren't doing what we hoped they would do, and that they will turn them over to us instead of
The
killing them
alternative.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the alternative.
Well,
Yeah.
that is wonderful that you've developed that relationship. And see, I'm not that person. I that's why I do what
You're not what person?
I am not the person that would develop the relationship. I
Right.
am the
Let
person.
me explain why that's important.
No, I know why it's important.
If we don't have open, honest communication with one another without judgment, we don't get anywhere.
Oh,
Because everyone
absolutely.
gets defensive.
Absolutely.
It's
And
hard.
people,
It's hard. I agree. It's hard
yeah.
because there are times where I
Yeah.
have gone off on people
Well, you
just as
see the suffering.
easily, you
You see
know,
the
because
suffering. You see the
yeah,
suffering and you deal with the suffering firsthand. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
And that's why I step back and I do, and I think that's also something like, do where your strength is, and my strength is not in remaining calm in the face of horrors. That's not my strength at all. And so I step back and let you and Angela handle that part, and then you just have me in the background. You tell me what to do, I will do it.
You can
tell me what to
foster
do.
the puppies.
I will foster
Yeah.
the puppies for
We'll
all
foster.
of you all night and day. Do not put me in touch with the actual people.
We need
Yeah.
communicators.
Yep.
We need communicators in everything that we do that know how to disarm,
Yes.
because that's how we get through and we have those conversations. You were out there doing that work.
Yeah,
Kudos to you.
and it's amazing.
Yeah. So I would like to know, in your words, because we ask every rescue this, and I think it's important for those who have either rescued, fostered, considering rescue, maybe haven't been a part of that world, what you think your biggest challenge is in rescue.
My biggest challenge, I would say, for our rescue is knowing when we have to stop with a dog and stop trying, because, you know, they've gotten to the point where they are not going to fare well, whether it's because of behavior issues or because of health issues. You know, at some point, the rescue runs out of money on certain things too.
Sure.
You know, things that have saved us over the years have been Corgi Aid. If Corgi Aid wasn't there, there have been a few dogs that wouldn't be around, a few Corgis that would not be around anymore. A lot of Corgis, actually, if you count all. But even in our group, they've helped about 8 Corgis with us that we wouldn't have had the financial standing to be able to take care of it. But when you're talking about aggression and stuff like that, where you might take in a dog that really is it behavior, you know, can some behavior modification help? Or is it something that is more, you know, in the brain and it's not doable? At what point do you stop, and what point do you have to make a hard decision on that dog?
Wow. Yeah. Is it a physical thing, a genetic thing that happened
And
versus,
there are
yeah,
genetic, abnormalities in dogs, and
Especially
that
with
make them,
crossbreeding, poor breeding. Yeah.
all of
yeah,
those things.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And that,
Um,
And
the
that
one
you
of
can speak to that as well with your breeding background, and how
Yeah,
temperament is
and
very
yeah,
important.
I mean, you see it with genetics, period, and some things like DM and corgis, and but there are mental health issues that in dogs that people don't really recognize. I see it as a dog trainer, that
yeah.
there are no bad dogs. Well, that would be like saying there are no bad people, honestly. It's not necessarily that they had a bad upbringing. It's not necessarily that bad things happened to them, and all those can be a part of it. But sometimes it just is a mental defect, that there isn't really something you can help. And then there are the dogs that have had the poor upbringing, the bad background, the most abuse, and there's a point where you can't, they're just too past the point where you can help them, no matter how positive you try and stay with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just like your serial killers, right? They study these serial killers, and some of them have had horrible backgrounds, like Richard Ramirez. I mean, anything that you could do to ruin a kid, that poor kid grew up with it and then created monster. But then there are also some that the parents say, we have no idea. Yes, you can interview us. We tried to do everything we could right. And they
Right.
still wound up with this. Yeah, that's a thing for sure. And Melissa said that. She said she used to think there were no bad dogs, only bad owners, but she started to change her stance on it. And I think some of that is overbreeding.
Well,
You have
yeah.
more
Oh, it
chances
is. Yeah.
I will change that statement and say there are no bad dogs, not necessarily bad owners, but certainly bad humans that are doing bad breeding.
Well, yeah, the
Yes.
overbreeding, the
The
more
overbreeding.
chances, the more you have, the more chances you have for poor
And
outcomes.
the multiple mixed breedings now too. I've seen a lot more issues. The new fave with corgis is the American corgi, which is a cardigan and Pembroke.
Which,
We actually talked about that in our season closer.
yes.
What makes a good breeder? And we said that we don't recommend buying from breeders who breed a quote unquote American corgis because they're not a recognized breed. Now, we love all of your puppies, no less if they're American. However, preservation breeders don't do that because those are two totally separate breeds. They're not recognized. You're essentially purchasing a mutt. And also, we don't think we understand all of the possible genetic ramifications yet.
Yeah, there's a possibility
Exactly.
I really have to genetically test my dog, but
We think Digby is an American. He's a
we think
rescue.
he's an American. However, his paperwork says that he's a Pembroke.
Right.
But you can just, pull paperwork out of your rear end.
Yeah, especially when it's
Right.
Continental
Yes.
Kennel Club's registry, not
Oh,
American.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we talked about what makes a good breeder, and we don't recommend breeders who will willingly breed American corgis or tell you they have American corgis because we feel like that's not a preservation breeder doing that.
No,
And
it's not.
we want to recommend those. So I want to talk about this before we let you go for the evening. Is what
And I think Angela started to hint toward that. The E-list.
Yeah, we want to talk about the E-list. And so for those that are not familiar, I call it the dreaded E word, euthanization. And there was a big push, and this is a very delicate conversation that we're going to have because we're here all about the pups first and foremost. That's why we have this entire show. But we want to talk about the E-list, and I'd love to get Angela's perspective on this, especially being that that Angela, that you've trained and that you've also bred, and now you're in rescue. You kind of you bring a full circle of perspective to this. But there was a big push for no-kill shelters because we thought, gosh, all these poor animals are not finding homes, they're losing their lives. And so there was a big push for no-kill shelters, and some legislation had actually achieved that. So we had wonderful number of no-kill shelters, but now we're finding that there's a problem with that. So it's a very controversial subject, but there are other problems with that. Like maybe no-kill is not the way to go, because then you lose quality of life because you get overcrowding.
Yes.
So it's, what is the philosophy as far as how should we approach this moving forward so we can do best for our animals? Our stance here is to try to recommend that no one gets, we specialize in Corgi, so we don't want anyone to buy a Corgi from anyone they shouldn't be buying from, that they should
Right.
either be rescuing or only getting from, these preservation breeders that have limited litters, because those are not the dogs that wind up in shelter and rescue most of the time.
Right. And, those are people who are working off a waiting list of people who want their dogs.
And we'll take the dog back if anything
Exactly.
happens. They don't wind
Yeah.
up. They care about
Right.
what happens long term. Right.
Right. That's the important part is, doing your research on a breeder if that's the route you're going to go. I would say the biggest thing for us is, what is the quality of life of the dog in the end? Is this a dog who is happy? If it's going to spend its life in rescue, or if it's going to spend its life in a shelter, is that going to be a happy dog? Not necessarily. Now, can some dogs handle being lifers in a rescue? I have one he's not a corgi, but he is completely blind.
Oh.
And he's only about 6 years old. He was an inbred dog who also created more inbred puppies on his own too in his family. And so, he's a dog though that happily goes out, checks out the whole perimeter of the yard, make sure everything is safe for everybody,
Oh.
and
Head of
but
security.
yeah, he does his thing, and he's happy to come back in and go to bed and chill and lay out there. And I just, he's just not a dog that anybody ever was willing to look at and see. But is he having a quality life in my rescue? Yeah, I believe so. A lot of my lifers, even the one who decides that she wants to occasionally bite you, I play ball with her, several times a week. We go out, we go for walks. I still do things and activities with her. Um, it's funny, I can take away almost everything from her at this point now. But I won't put her out there because I know somebody else is going to make a mistake and she will probably bite them. And then it becomes a liability for us too.
Right.
And many
you know,
rescues can't take, we talked about bite histories before we started recording, and many rescues don't have the insurance to cover bite
yeah,
risks. You can't
I
take
don't either. I mean, I
Yeah.
have her in our rescue, but she basically is now my dog. I can't consider her the rescue. Um, but I have to be very careful. I have to be on a complete watch with her. And usually, actually, if she meets somebody new, she's not going to bite. It's going to be over something. Somebody's trying to take her bone. Somebody's trying, to touch her toy. That's when it's going to happen. So, is that a dog that I think can, still live out a good full life? Yes. But there have been a couple, the one that every time the moon changed to full, he would go into werewolf mode and would just flat out attack you. I'd have to put a barrier between me and him.
Goodness.
He wouldn't stop. We tried everything. We tried medication. We tried training. I got a specialized trainer. I did behaviorist. And at some point, I finally had to say, I'm sorry, dude, I can't. I want to save them all. But yeah, I have to look at it and go, what's the best for the rest of the rescue too? Because every dog that stays in my rescue takes away funding for the other ones too, and takes the
Right.
spot from a potential dog who could, find a home very easily too.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a very profound perspective.
It's a profound perspective. It's always a heartbreaking decision. It's a profound perspective. And I think what we were talking about before we started recording also was I was under the impression that when a rescue or a shelter says no kill, it means no kill. And that is not the case.
There are exceptions
either.
to the rule.
There
yeah.
are exceptions to the
It just
rule.
means that they don't put them on timelines specifically. They have other
Yes,
parameters.
They have other parameters. So it's
Yeah, well, I mean, overall, would I consider myself a no kill? Yes,
yes.
because I
and
try my darndest to not have to do it.
Mhm.
I think the overall message, and we heard it a lot in recent weeks, and that is, I love that you think that your puppy is adorable, and I love that you love your puppy, and I love that you think that the puppy next door is adorable, and I love that you think they will make adorable puppies. So why don't I just do one litter? No,
Please
just
don't.
no, just
Please
Well, can
reference our why you should not breed your corgi in
Yeah.
episode
Can I
4.
tell you
or
a story from 25 years ago when I worked at a humane society?
Yes, please.
And
Okay.
it was a humane society, but it was a very forward kill, humane society. In my county, Clark County, I mean, we still have a ton of dogs that come and go, and they in 4 months that I worked there, I had to euthanize 200 animals
Oh,
in 4
goodness.
months, and I wasn't the main euthanasia tech. And I had one lady bring in a litter of puppies, and I had space for 4. She had 9.
Mm.
And I found out from one of the other people who'd worked there for a really long time that was like the 3rd or 4th litter she had brought in. These cute
Oh,
little mixed breed puppies that, her kids just wanted to see the miracle of life.
And did
And
she take them there? They should take them there so her kids can see the destruction of death.
then that is what I told her. I actually got written up for it because I told her, I said, well, I need you to pick then. I said, I have space for 4.
Mm.
You tell me which 5 you want me to euthanize.
So the logic was for her to have, let me be sure that I'm understanding what you said of this person that brought them in. Her logic was to let the children see the conception and see life form, but then they had nothing to do with them once they were born, but to take them to your shelter.
Exactly. Yeah. At the shelter, they were 8 weeks old, and now it's time to find them homes. But the shelter was going to do that for them.
Oh, gosh.
And that's the point that I said, well, I think that they should also see the miracle of death too. And I can show them what happens to the puppies that don't have space. She called my
Good
director
for
and
you.
told him that I was mean and that I told her that that her puppies were going to die. And well, I was honest because I did have to euthanize 5 of them. She left them anyway. And I still had to euthanize 5 of them that night.
There would be a very big lesson here in that the choices we make have consequences.
Yeah.
And when she takes those puppies to the shelter and says, no longer our problem, I just utilized their precious lives for something I wanted to put forth, then she no longer has to deal with it's a very hands-off, very
Yeah.
non-accountable way to do that.
Yes, and I've had,
And you've never forgotten that. That was 25 years ago.
No, that was 25 years ago, and I have not forgotten that. I never will forget it. It's one of the reasons I do rescue.
And let me tell
And
you
try and
that
educate too.
and any
Educate about
person,
spaying and neutering. And, I told her I would pay. I told her, I said, I will pay to have that mom spayed.
Fixed. Yeah.
And she refused it.
and let me tell you that now you haven't forgotten it in 25 years. Candy and I will never forget this story.
No.
And I don't think our listeners will ever forget this
Yeah,
story.
that's pretty heavy.
That is heavy.
But thank you for sharing it
Thank
with
you
us.
so
And I am
much.
sorry that you had to experience that.
Yep.
And I'm sorry that that person justified their actions by not
Yeah.
continuing to spay their animal. I actually got into a discussion. I don't typically argue with people online, but we have some corgi interest groups. And Angela, I'm sure you're a member of some of them. But there was someone who was asking, she had a male and a female corgi, and she was afraid that they might have tied. And she had left her dogs in the care of someone else. They weren't fixed yet. And she talks about the symptoms of her female, and several said, yeah, that sounds like probably, you need to go to the vet, have an ultrasound, make sure, etc. And so I had kind of piped in and I said, if you take them to the vet now, earlier, sooner, forgive me for saying this word, and I hope we don't get shadow banned from YouTube for this, but I said, you can actually terminate the pregnancy if it's early enough. And that created some enemies. People did not like that stance that I said that. And I think, again, this goes back to having open conversations where we listen to one another, because few people came for me, right? And we're like, so your solution is just to kill the puppies. I said, no, they're not puppies yet. Okay, we don't have homes for them. We don't know the
In
genetic
a nation
ramifications.
where we have the same argument about children, and
Sure.
more often than not, a lot of the same people who will yell at you for spaying a dog that is pregnant will also yell at you for not giving them the right to abort their own child.
Right, and
And
I won't touch the human.
and that's the hard
portion of
thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't touch the human portion of that
yeah,
with a 25-foot pole, because that's not my focus.
it is.
And
It's not. Yeah. I'm
Sure.
not. I'm not here to define anybody's, religious or other beliefs, or their own, what their own things are. But I will say this, with as many dogs that are born in the United States every day that don't have homes,
Yeah.
what is better?
Right.
In the
right.
long run.
And that was kind of what I was trying to
and
explain.
it's something you
Sure.
have to look at. And I get it. There's always going to be an argument. Yeah.
So,
But
let me finish the story. So then we got into a conversation, and one in particular, and again, you had a lot of people Hail Marying every time they came with me. Yes, this woman is awful. She's saying to terminate, and I'm like, okay, you guys aren't hearing me. Of course I care about the puppies. That's why I'm saying you do this. We don't have genetic information on either the male or female. And she's like, they're not related. And I said, well, you don't know that. You don't have AKC lineage. You don't have any paperwork that says where they came from. I don't actually know. They could be. You don't know.
Right.
Maybe not. This may be a slim chance. But you also don't know if they're DM carriers, von Willebrand's, exercise-induced collapse, any of the many genetic diseases. You don't know what you're putting these puppies through. And you also don't have any conformation testing. They're not OFA rate. You don't know what you're putting these puppies through. And then how are you going to have homes for them? Well, then the argument was, I have a bunch of people that's spoken for them. I'm like, you guys really don't understand the big picture, because just because you have spoken for them, that was the other argument I got. Well, what's the problem, Candy, if she has homes for them? Well, you don't have a spay and neuter contract, so you're not guaranteeing that they're also not producing offspring. You're not agreeing to take them back if something happens, like a preservation breeder would. It's like these things are all very important. It's all, for me, being dog centric. And so then, of course, I get lambasted. Well, did you skip biology class? Because I said they're not puppies yet. And I said, I'm not even going to get into the
when is a puppy a puppy?
Yeah, that is all in philosophy.
if he was going to spay or neuter them anyway.
But that's
I'm at that point where if she was going to spay and neuter them, it's going to save many lives at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have this argument a lot of times too, where people say, well, you adopt a shelter dog versus buying a dog from a breeder, because you're saving a life. Well, you're actually saving a life either way. But it's knowing what breeder you're getting from. I mean, I've bought many dogs myself. And there's a reason for me going out and purchasing a specific dog. I want that genetics. I want to do something specific with it. There are plans, and so yeah, I specifically picked that breeder. That there was a reason behind it. It was behind the genetics of it and everything. Have I rescued the same? Yes, absolutely. Have no clue on the genetics of it or what's ever going to happen. And still one of the best, some of the best dogs I've ever taken in are, rescues.
Yeah.
But
that's
if
the
I was
other
going to spay or
divisive-
neuter the dog anyway, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other divisive issue, right? And we talk about that a lot on the show. Adopt, don't shop is a big thing. And I never argue with anybody who says that. I said, please adopt if you can. We need homes for all these. I'm never going to argue with that. Yes, please adopt, please adopt. But I'm also never going to shame anybody if they want a puppy from a breeder. You're getting a dog that's been mindfully bred, that the person that bred them cares about them. They're making you sign an agreement that you will spay and neuter because they care about what happens to their bloodline and you don't have breeding rights, and that they agree to take them back if anything happens in your situation. And they've paid close attention to the temperament of that animal and the health of that animal. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I have both as well, rescues and breeder purchase. And so that's a big topic on the show here, that we try to tell people that the dogs that are bred from the right places are not the ones winding up in shelter.
That's now, and we're going way off on a tangent.
Weeds. We're in the weeds.
We're in the weeds. And adopt, don't shop. Don't
Come out of the weeds.
shop. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say the adopt. Don't shop at the dollar store breeder. Don't shop
your next door neighbor.
Your next door neighbor who's cute dog. Don't shop those dogs. Don't shop the backyard breeder. That's where we
don't shop the pet store.
Stop. I'm sorry. Was that Angela?
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't shop at the pet store.
Mm-hmm. Don't shop at the pet store. That's a whole nother episode we've got to do, because New York is now no longer allowing
catching up. Breeder.
Yeah. They're not allowing adoptions in pet stores anymore. Right. Yeah. And I got into an argument on Facebook for that.
No.
Me? No, never.
Anyway, so let's wrap it up so we can let Angela get back to her home, or back to her evening, since she's worked all day and came and talked to us. Yes. But yeah, so thank you for bringing your perspective to us. And I wanted to talk about this. And these are all hotbed issues that are very important to us. Again, keep in mind, I say it all the time, as a trainer myself and rescue mom and breeder purchase dog mom, humans are both the best and worst thing to happen to animals.
Yes.
Like at the same time.
Yes.
And everything that we say here on the show, if we have a stance, we have an opinion, we try to remain open and listen to other perspectives so that we can have those conversations. But it is all about the love of the pup and what's best for the pups.
Exactly.
Always, no matter what. Not just because we think things should be the way.
Yep.
So, but we thank you so much for what you're doing. Before we let you go, we will drop those links into the comments if you want to visit the rescue. This is the call to action. Angela, how can we help? How can we help support you?
I would say the biggest things that we always need dog food. We always need supplies of any sort. Gift cards to PetSmart are always great. So I will promote them because they are also a adopt only place. They don't sell puppies or kittens there.
Right.
But there's things, you can always send us money. We'll take for sure. But dog food is always our biggest number one need, because we go through 10 cans of dog food every day. And we go through about 80 pounds of dog food a week.
Okay.
So dog food is our number one. And with dog food prices so high, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. And so if you're too far away to drop it off at Angela's place, then do send those gift cards, and I'm sure Angela and
Are you still there?
Happily use them.
Yeah. Perfect.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for everything you do. And thank you for joining us and lending your perspective.
We appreciate it. And the work you do.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. We hope you have a great night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All these like heartfelt, we get our
Yeah.
fervor, we get our heartstrings pulled, right?
They're heavy episodes, but
Yeah.
they're also episodes that people need to hear because good people, okay, and when I say good people, I mean people who don't know what's really going on. Good people need to hear this. Now, bad people, wait, that woman. Yeah, okay. I need my kids to see puppies being born, and I will keep doing this, and I don't care what the consequence is. Bad people, my opinion, bad people. But
Perspective is everything.
Perspective
and
is
there's
everything.
a lot of missing perspective in that situation.
And so, there are a lot of people out there that don't know the full stuff that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I will drop my dog off. There was just apparently a news story here in Phoenix that a dog was dropped off at the Arizona Humane Society. 2 of my cats have come from the Arizona Humane Society, and I love them very, very much. And just tied to a pole with a note for the Arizona Humane Society to please find this dog another home.
Mm.
No, that's not their job. And that's now because there was a news story on it, that dog is probably adopted. But what about all those hundreds and hundreds? And if we put all our shelters together, just here, Arizona Corgi Rescue, Healers Healing Hearts, Maricopa County, Pinell County, all these different,
That's
rescues.
just local.
Just local here to you and me.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking thousands of dogs and cats. Not all the rescues take cats, but thousands.
This is why we do what we do.
This is why we do what we do.
We're all about the love of the animals.
Please consider all these factors when you're adopting. It's forever.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a dog or a cat,
where you get them, please be mindful of where you get them.
Be mindful of where you get them, and make sure you spay or neuter the animal.
We are always happy to help guide you. We are never going to steer you to any 1 or 2 breeders. We will never be incentivized, but we will tell you what questions to ask. We will make specific recommendations upon the question, but we will tell you why we make those recommendations, because we're never incentivized. It's only because we believe.
Exactly.
So, thank you so much. This was a heavy episode. Thanks for sticking with us.
Thank you.
But we hope you enjoyed. Not everything so heavy. Sometimes it's just fun. But we'll see you next week.
See you next
Candy
week.
and Cat, Chuckles, Mortimer, Digby, Booger, Tito,
and Millie.
And Millie.
The honorary corgi for this episode.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.